Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I am really sorry, my Hungarian is terrible.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Control, which released in 2003 from writers Jim Adler and Nimród Antal, and directed by Nimród Antal. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Bochu. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but as I said, my Hungarian is terrible. Bochu works in an underground metro as a ticket collector and has been sleeping underground all the time. As we follow him on a day of his job, we start to question, how far has he gone?
So, the moment this film started, I kind of stopped it, and I was like, wait a minute, I think I know this director.
Right,
I think
right.
I've seen his name somewhere before, but
yeah.
I need to double check. And yes, we've talked about this director once before,
Yep.
and that was Predators. He actually made the third Predator film, 7 years after this one.
Yeah.
But also, I wasn't aware of this, but he was also the director of the Master of Puppets Metallica music video.
Okay.
And he was also the director of the most recent Stranger Things episodes.
Yes,
including the Metallica episode.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And so this is awesome, coming back to his actual first movie.
Yeah.
And now he is Hungarian parents, but he was actually raised in America.
Yeah.
But he wanted to go back and tell this story. He said he was influenced by Andrei Tarkovsky's Solaris as one of the biggest inspirations for the film, but he also wanted to highlight the haves and have-nots after the fall of communism.
Okay.
That was something that he wanted to have as part of his story or his characters to emphasize that.
Yeah.
But it actually took him about 9 months to convince the authorities to let him and his film crew film in the Budapest subway metro station.
Yeah.
They kept saying no.
Yeah.
And when they finally relented and agreed, it was the caveat that there would be a snippet of video at the beginning of the film explaining that all of the characters that work for the metro are not representations of the real location.
Yes.
And I was like, it's very like, well, going into the film, then you would see that it almost feels very documentary-esque in terms of this, all the extras look like actual people in the background.
Yes.
And some of the characters that work for the metro are, well,
a little bit extravagant, shall we say, if we're being nice.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit out there.
They are certainly a
quirky group of characters.
Yes.
I'm just going to start off by obviously apologising that I can't pronounce a lot of these people's names, and I'm going to kind of apologise for myself for being so harsh to Predators when we reviewed it, because after watching this guy's first movie, Control, I can kind of see some of his work in that. I mean, I know Predators wasn't all him because it was Robert Rodriguez as well, so there's some stuff there, but I really enjoyed this. I know this is going to offend some people, but I wikied this before I started watching this because I was researching it, you know, and I was looking into him and I was looking into the actors, and then I just hit plot and I wanted to see because it had the feel of a horror movie. That's the feel I got from the moment I saw the poster. So as soon as I read it, I'm thinking, where's this going? And then I started to get Bringing Out the Dead vibes. I started to get Nicolas Cage on the edge. This guy is working somewhere. He's not happy, and this is the story around that. And like I said, when I hit play, I was sat down, had my cup of tea, ready to go, hit play, and this guy holds up this letter and starts looking at me, reading from this letter, talking about how, you know, the representations aren't the same, and they allowed him to obviously film here, but they kind of thanked him as well for telling this story and exploring this world. And I was like, what the what am I watching? You know?
Yeah.
Filmjében ábrázol, az fikció, egy fiktív föld alatti világ. Sem maga a helyszín, sem az ott történő események, sem az események szereplői nem köthetők a BKV-hoz, mert univerzális gondolatokat tükröznek.
Well, it's also pretty amazing that this was the first Hungarian film entry into a film festival in 20 years at the point. So it's really saying something. Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job here as well.
Yeah, I totally loved the visuals immediately.
Absolutely.
The way the escalators are shown.
The opening of this film is spellbinding.
Yes.
It really catches your attention with the use of music, the lighting, the camera position as we watch this drunken lady make her way down the escalator.
Yeah.
You're kind of fascinated, like, who is she? Why is she here? Where's she come from?
No, I was more like, this bitch is drunk.
Well, now she dead too. Because and it's the editing here is also really good. We know the train's coming. We've seen her fumble and slip, and then all we see is the shoe left on the platform.
Oh yeah, it was great. But like, I'll go back that shot of just her coming down that escalator, her there trying to get the bottle open. I'm sat there. I'm like I already know what's going to happen because I spoiled it. But at the same time, I'm looking at this woman and I'm just like, where are we going with this? I don't see anybody else. She's stumbling around the darkness, capturing this moment just beautifully. And like Gary said, boom, she's in front of this train and we're into the movie and we're introduced to Sándor Sinal, who plays Bochu. And he's literally just woken up, on the floor of the metro. The lights have all started to flick on. And, he's got this nosebleed thing going on. And immediately I'm just like, okay, so he's suffering from some brain thing. There's something wrong with his head. You don't just get nosebleeds unless you wake up on the floor of the metro.
Well, we also don't know what happened to him the day or night before for him to be here. We also are not privy yet to the fact that he actually works here. And some passerby's just like, your nose is bleeding. And he seems agitated by this person. So he starts chasing after him. The other guy's going faster. And eventually he puts his armband on. He's like, tickets or passes, please.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
But amazingly, that's what he said. Like, the director wanted to, look at the way the world was before, where they had the badges and you had to do as they said. And so this guy is terrified now, of trying to show his pass, because if he loses his pass, it's going to cost him money that he doesn't have to replace it. He's not going to be able to get to work, be able to make the money and I'm like, oh wow, this is bringing out the dead. I'm totally relating to this guy that life is just hard. When you're introduced to Mucci, the guy with narcolepsy, this chip scene was amazing.
It was. This was a really well written sequence.
Yes.
And I was like, it's great that this scene is so early in the film because it really sets up all these characters and the incredible dark humor that this film has, where he's eating a greasy breakfast and his friend is smoking and they're both going, well, you're going to die of a heart attack, your arteries are going to clog, and he's like, well, you don't see me complaining about you smoking, and he's like, well, I'm just trying to be nice here, I'm not getting agitated. And for all of that, it looks like he chokes and dies face first in his food and the other two are just like, oh, he'll be fine. And I'm like, he looks dead. But of course we only find out a little bit later that he's actually got narcolepsy and he's prone to passing out whenever he's confrontational. And that plays in with some montages later in the film where they're having to deal with people using the metro and argumentative ones, and he will just pass out. And I was just like, man, it's a pretty dangerous place. Like, the film opened with a lady going, in front of the train. I'm just like, man, you can pass out anywhere.
Yeah, but that's it. They don't care. You've got that office sequence where you've got the boss sat there in the chair watching the timer tick around, and as soon as it gets to a certain point, he stands up and he just starts declaring and barking orders at everybody. And I'm like, I fucking love this movie. I've been in this situation a million times. He's breaking down the teams. You've got Gonzo. He's got the best crew. He does the best work. Everybody loves him.
He gets the new uniform.
He gets the new uniform. Like, as soon as I saw this leather jacket with this red band on the arm, I was like, what the, didn't you just burn these things like 40 years ago? Like, no. And the people in the office are kind of relatable because every single one of them was just there for the job. their job is to declare for passes, and if you don't have a pass, you've got to get off the train or you're going to be arrested. Nobody wants to get arrested.
Or fined in this film, yeah.
Fined or whatever. So that's what they do to try and get passes. But there's thousands of people.
I know. The scenes flow together so well in this film. And so then when we see them out there doing their job and just, like, it's this whole setup where they don't have their armbands on and they all link up together. They get on the train, and the moment they're on the train, then all the bands are on, and then they start going down the train systematically, checking everybody.
It's a confined space.
It is.
With a bunch of people who really don't like you, and you're just trying to do your job. Some of them, like Gonzo and his friends, are probably really arrogant, and some people are just there. But you then flick back to that sequence where the guy comes down the escalator with the cloak over his head, and this is like our bad guy. This is where the movie's like, this guy's a killer, and we follow him, and he's just, you never see his face. It's just brilliantly well done till we get behind this businessman who stood there with a briefcase, and we don't see the killer, but then we see him, and then boom, he's in front of the train. We don't see anything until the next shot where you've got the fucking police officer, detectives, whatever, the crime scene cleaners picking up the brain and dropping it in the bag. That's
picking up all these giblets and they're talking about how to season their meat at the same time. I was just like, wow, like they're having a conversation about cooking food while scooping up the remains.
Yeah.
And of course we've got the platform crew there, and we've got the new guy as well who immediately just throws up. Yeah. And you've got the professor guy who's just like, yeah, that's it. Just throw up on my shoulder if you have to.
There's bird shit on my shoulder. It's okay. You can do that.
Yeah, these characters are great. The dialogue is great. The humor is perfect.
Semmi baj. Gondolod, le is húgyozhatsz.
And it flows in really well to the point where Bochu is introduced to Sophie. Now, we don't really understand at first, but it turns out she's the daughter of one of the metro drivers.
Yeah.
A bit of a drunk.
Well, he's got this, the first time we're introduced to him is when they're all waiting they're on the platform waiting for the train, and the train shoots past them all, and they're all just like, where's he going? And we see him eventually reverses it back. But we find out, this goes way later in the film, we find out that he was originally a train driver above surface, or not underground, but apparently he had an accident, crashed a locomotive because he went past his stop again. So I was like, well, he's still doing it now even though he's underground, but his daughter still loves him. The other characters respect this guy anyway,
and the daughter is using the metro just to get everywhere, but she's dressed as a bear, so the first time Bochu sees her, he's just immediately just questioning, who is she? He's infatuated. She's beautiful. Like this is it's like Rosanna Arquette or Patricia Arquette in Bringing Out the Dead for Nicolas Cage, and I was just like, I totally get this character now. He's suffering. Bochu, his life has gone somewhere, and so we're seeing him spend just all of his time in the metro. That's all he does.
He's resigned himself underground permanently.
Yeah.
At the end of the first day in the film, when everyone goes home, he doesn't. He just goes back to sleep on the platform again for the next day. So, this guy doesn't ever go to the surface.
No, we don't ever see it.
This film never goes above either. We get a couple of shots where he's just looking up at the escalator. There's also another shot later on where it almost feels like a dream sequence where he's wandering through these catacombs.
Well, yeah.
And he comes to this wall where you'd think there'd be a doorway, but for him, it's a dead end.
Yeah.
I was like, how much is real at this moment, and how much are we now seeing his psyche? Well, because he's locked himself down here for a reason.
Well, it's like said, the dream sequence. He falls asleep, but it's like, is he asleep? Sophie wakes him up and says, "Come with me," and he follows her. And then he finds this tunnel, and he just walks into the tunnel holding a flare, and he just keeps going on. And you don't realize at first, but the tunnel's getting smaller and smaller until he finally finds a gap, looks, and there's the cloaked figure.
Yeah, the pusher, train pusher, yeah.
And my mind is just like, okay, the pusher he's the killer.
Yeah.
He's killed these people,
it's
but
definitely
he just doesn't realize. It's
Yeah.
definitely applying it. But you keep then cutting back to his crew. And the psychiatry sequence, that poor psychiatrist. Oh my god.
It's a great montage. Just like all of them are sort of calm at first, but as the montage goes, it just gets crazier and wackier, and the comments that they make. That psychiatrist must be at his wit's end.
You got the guy with the mustache. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't remember his character's name. I try to remember everybody else's, but mustache guy, like, I'm sure between him and Mookie were my favourites, because he's scrappy. He's ready to fight and just do his job and help everybody. And so you get the sequence where they fight the football hooligans on the train.
Like Bootsy, was he called? Or
possibly. No, Bootsy was the sprayer guy.
Yes, who sprays the new kid in the face.
Yeah, there's a guy who's running around the metro spraying inspectors in the face. And they have this amazing chase sequence all the way through. It's filmed brilliantly. But he's not captured. But he's killed
he ends up luring them into a train with a bunch of football hooligans.
Yeah.
And we see them after the fight, just all battered and bruised and bloodied. But yeah, they do. There's that again, a great sequence like the next day where he spots him about to get on the train tying his shoelaces.
Yeah.
And he notices he's been spotted. They both step onto the train and step off the train. Step on the train, step off the train. And the music is really well edited here. And the moment the chase starts, the music kicks in as they're chasing through the platforms in the station. And yeah, again, it's another horror moment where out of nowhere, trick of the light, blink, you miss it, he's been pushed into the front of the train and gone.
Yeah.
And and this is where Bochu ends up getting questioned by his boss, by the authorities.
The guy with the birthmark
on his face.
Oh my god.
He's not being intimidated by anybody or anything.
No.
And so they're looking to put the blame on him because, well, the camera doesn't show any figure.
That's the really great thing. Is like I said, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, they don't just arrest him. Why is this? And then when I saw it on screen, it's like, because the camera, they're questioning him and saying, you know where the cameras are. You're sleeping down here every night. You've got every idea of how this place works. You could be killing these people, but we've got no evidence. And it's also intertwined as well because they've been doing the run, haven't they? Oh man.
Well, there's a rivalry between the crews, isn't there?
Yeah.
And so they to settle this score, they do the run through the subway.
Yeah.
And like the new guy's just like, oh, this is pretty exciting, until he realizes, there's actually going to be a train chasing after them.
Why do they call you C? It's for cripple. Why do they call you cripple? Because I've got no toes on my foot. And he's taking I'm like, it's because he got hit by a train, motherfucker. It's good, and the Tibor is there like, I don't get it. He was so good as a character. But this run, we don't see. We only get the after effects where Bochu jumps up onto the station side and then he grabs Gonzo and he saves him. So now Gonzo kind of owes him and he's pissed himself.
I have to say, there's no special effects in this movie.
That's what.
And these stunts were performed for real in front of real moving trains. Now, apparently, it was in the trivia here, but a Hungarian stuntman who was actually working at the time on Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines.
Wow.
And he got a call saying they want to do some stunt work in this film, and he was like, all right, I need to stop Terminator for a minute. I'm going home, and I'm going to do this stunt, and then I'll come back here and working on Terminator. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. That's cool. But yeah, the stunts in this were like, that's pretty scary.
I was almost afraid you were going to say he died, so they finished Terminator 3 and then get something. I was like, oh. No. But he's like this last race sequence. So we followed Bochu all the way through. He had that amazing sequence and sat down with Balla, and he's had some food. And Bella's even said to him, like, wait, or stay. And Bochu's just like, no. He gets up. And he doesn't even realise that Balla is Sophie's daughter, or he has cottoned on at this point. So Sophie is using the train for free. And that moment where he walks down the train station, he's like, he says to Balla, like, how do I get out of here? There's many ways to get out. I'm like, the script is, oh, mwah, chef's kiss.
Yes.
He finds the dead end and I'm like, he needs to get out. And then when he finds the party and is confronted by the hooded character, it's now a fight sequence, but it's like,
an internal one?
Yeah, because he's fighting him, but he's not. I like it.
Yeah. It's all done visually, and they end up both running through the underground.
Yeah.
And we hear the train coming, but it's only him who ends up being pulling himself up onto the platform again.
Yeah.
So if the pusher was chasing him and behind him, he's dead by the train.
Yeah.
If it was in his head at this point in the film, also dead. But it does also mean our character is a serial killer.
So we don't know. We don't know.
I mean, I'm leading on the fact that he's not, but he's not the killer. But he's also just fantasizing about it anyway, or manifesting, his image of it. And there's just a lot of suicides because there are.
This moment with Sophie as well was well done, because she'd been a bear all the way through, and then she'd had her suit ripped. And her confrontation with Bochu, where she's like, I bet you think I'm weird. And he's like, no, I do like you. She turns up as an angel at the end. And I was just so taken back of how visual it was done, because through like not much wording, but just enough, she takes his hand, she kisses him, and they make their way to the escalator and they ascend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really kind of sweet ending.
Yeah,
I do feel like there was a few plot threads that were not tied up though.
Like which ones?
Like the rivalry that he had with the other guys that beat him up again.
Fuck them.
The rest of his colleagues kind of just disappear from the film.
I felt bad about that, and I really wish they'd had like a series about the crew.
Yes,
there.
That's how I felt. Like at the 47-minute mark of this film, I stopped it and I was like, that was great. Like, I've loved all of this, but I honestly felt like the next hour the film did kind of wave.
Yeah,
I still think it was solid, but I honestly felt like it could have been another 40 minutes break and then another 40 minutes. It felt almost episodic, but that's because there was lots of tendrils of characters and plots and threads going on throughout the film. But all of the conversations were really, really good. There was also something else that you kind of become aware as the film's going on, that I don't know much about Budapest or the Underground or the subway. All British, we have to pay. You want to use transport, you pay, right?
Yeah.
But it's the fact that almost all the people, all the patrons using the subway don't have tickets, don't have passes. There are so many of them that just almost feel like they don't have to pay. And these characters that are doing it also don't seem to really care about whether they have tickets or not. It's just a case of they need to do this to keep their existence going.
Yeah, but that's the idea of the menial task, isn't it? It's like the bus conductor. We have train ticket guys as well on trains and stuff, but it's the ones that we see in the movie, and there's so many of them. The ones we see in the movie are the ones that don't have them. So you got to imagine they've gone ticket, ticket, ticket. No, but you can fuck this prostitute if you want, instead of having a ticket. No, I want your ticket. The Chinese tourists, they start going at Tibor and he's trying to explain.
You've got the guy with the big dog as well, and they're just hiding up above.
They were just making up all these different reasons of not having a ticket. So that's what made me relate, because I'd want to kill them. Because I mean, as I said, we didn't even touch on the story of Lands.
Yeah.
Right from the start, we see Bochu like, "Are you okay?" And I think it's Lands or Lars. He's just like, "Oh, I've had enough," and he's just got the wide eye stare. And then later on, he slits the throat of a passenger because the passenger punched him in the nose. It's like. Yeah, I totally fucking get it.
Exactly. So, I mean, that tells you a lot about all of the characters that are working down here and the state of mind that they're in. And, of course, we do find out there is a conversation with Bochu where he ends up meeting somebody who he knows from Topside.
Yes.
And this guy's, like, in a suit, professional.
Doing
and he's
well,
just like, what happened to you? And he's like, oh, yeah, I travelled and worked around and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, so we know he's lying and he's just not facing his reality or whatever.
He hides the badge away from, doesn't he?
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's so many scenes like that just give you layers to these characters, and that's the real beauty of this film, is just how well it's written and how much attention the director has given to these characters.
Yeah.
So, Iain, do you have any favourite scenes
from
Control?
I'll keep it short and sweet. I mean, if it wasn't visuals, like I said, the escalator sequences with the drunk girl, or when Bootsy's sliding down using it as an escape, or like the station sequences where Bochu's going to sleep or waking up and the lights are just like working, like visually. The director caught everything really, really well. If I had to go for sequences, it would have to be anything that involved Mucci. I was in just stitches of just... it's what confused me. The movie told me, like, oh, this is a dark comedy. And I'm like, okay, but I found myself weighing so much more to the comedy side. And the darkness was there, but I didn't need it. It just was kind of background stuff. I like the tunnel sequence, him meeting up with Sophie, eating the food with Balla. I mean, you'd go. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm going to say the first 7 minutes was really strong in this film, from the opening titles into watching that lady wandering down to the platform before she falls in front of the train, to the conversation about the greasy food versus cigarettes. I was just like, I was in this world. I'd been submerged down into their dank level of hell,
underground.
Yes.
Yes.
So the entire first 7-8 minutes was really, really strong. I found the sequence horrifying where the businessman has moved in front of the train and he doesn't necessarily look like he wants to. He doesn't look like a jumper.
No.
And that's the sequence that makes me go, is there then a train pusher?
Yeah.
But then how come nobody else saw it? Because it was a pretty crowded platform. Yeah, I know the lights went out, but
it's fast.
So, but it was that sequence I found horrifying, and of course it's the one that then opens up the questions like, who's doing these killings, or are they just suicides? Doesn't answer it, but I don't think the film needs to. It is a good mystery, the conversation where they're talking about the seasoning of the meat while they're pulling out the giblets, I was just like, I stopped the film because I was laughing so hard. I was like, that's amazing! I can't believe they've paired this up together and it works. And the psychiatrist, the montage. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But I also really loved the chase sequence. I thought the camera work was really good. The music, it montaged together really well.
Which chase sequence? Bootsy?
The Bootsy one. The
train
Bootsy one. Yeah, I thought that was really well done.
The train one was really good.
Which is what built up the second encounter so well. Before, unfortunately, he ends up in front of a train too. Iain, do you recommend Control?
I do recommend it. I recommend it so much I would actually go off and watch Predators now, because I think the director is really, really good. Just like Gary said, all of the sequences are just so well kind of put together that you don't realise the length of it. It might be a little bit too long in places. You could cut back maybe on the interrogation sequence, or it wasn't necessarily needed because the guy was just intimidating with that goddamn birthmark. But, all of the crew. Mucci was fucking hilarious. The guy with the mustache was hilarious. I love the Professor and Tabor, but Bochu steals the show with Sophie and Balla. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going to be recommending Control. This was highly entertaining. It was funny, and it was layered in style and substance. There's a lot of great aspects to point out with this film, and the screenplay stood out the most. Great dialogue and characters matched with a director who easily controls your attention when switching tone or mood. The setting, the location, it was beautifully captured and framed with great lighting. The dim, rat-infested tunnels, the fluorescent bathed tiles and giant fans. The film at times is incredibly visually arresting. The casting, I think, was perfect. Everyone felt like real characters, real people. A complete naturalness or normalness that was refreshing. There's a lot of plot threads, and some of them more engaging than others, but all have something to say, or hide, regarding their choices in life while accosting patrons on the subway. The ending doesn't answer everything, and it leaves a few plots open-ended, but it's still really satisfying and hopeful. Great editing, lots of energy in the chase scenes, brilliant dark humour, and a well-crafted film. Absolutely worth a watch. Murder, mystery, romance, just another day on the subway. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Così!